Hey there, ready to dive into a story that might just change how you think about success? We're taking a deep dive into the world of Daniel Ek, the mind behind Spotify, using his recent interview on the Diary of a CEO YouTube channel. Now, this isn't your typical tech bro makes it big story. This is a journey of self-discovery ambition and some pretty surprising twists. We're going to uncover some unexpected things about Daniel Ek, like did you know he grew up in a working class neighborhood in Stockholm but trained in, wait for it, the pentathlon and gymnastics? Turns out his mother had some pretty unique ideas about parenting, prioritizing effort over outcomes. Imagine that. And get this, he actually retired at 23, lived the whole fast cars and nightclubs dream. But surprise, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. In fact, it led him straight into a pretty serious bout of depression. But that experience taught him something invaluable about happiness, something that Ferraris and VIP parties couldn't give him. So buckle up, because we're about to explore how Ikik's unconventional upbringing, his unexpected struggle with depression, and his introverted nature shaped not only his personal life, but also the entire culture of Spotify. Oh, and we'll definitely touch on those epic battles he fought with Apple in the music industry. Let's dive in.
It's amazing how Eek's upbringing seems to have been almost tailor-made to prepare him for the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. His mother's focus on effort rather than just results is really intriguing. Makes you wonder if that kind of foundation instilled a resilience in him that many people don't develop until much later in life, if ever.
When I first read about the whole pentathlon thing, I was like, wait, what? I mean, that's 5 different sports. What was she thinking? But it does make you wonder if maybe she was on to something. Could this approach, focusing on the process and the dedication rather than just the win, be the secret sauce behind his incredible drive and ability to overcome setbacks? It definitely goes against the grain of the typical participation trophy mentality, right? So maybe there's something to be said for instilling that kind of grit and work ethic from a young age. It raises a really interesting question for all of us, though. How much do you think our early environments and the values we're exposed to actually shape our path in life?
That's something to think about for sure. And it makes you appreciate how unique Ick's journey really is. I mean, here he is, early 20s, sells his first company, and decides to live the dream. Early retirement, all the money he could ever need. Sounds idyllic, right? Except it wasn't.
He did everything you'd expect. Sports cars, exclusive clubs, trying to buy his way into happiness. But what's striking is how quickly that facade crumbled. He talks about feeling this overwhelming emptiness, lacking energy, withdrawing from social situations. These are classic signs of depression, and it's remarkable that he experienced them at a time when, from the outside looking in, he seemingly had it all.
It really challenges the assumption that wealth equals happiness, doesn't it? I think a lot of people can relate to that maybe on a smaller scale. You chase a promotion, a bigger house, a fancy car, thinking it'll bring you joy. But then you get there and it's not what you expected. Have you ever felt that disconnect between what you think will make you happy and what actually does?
Eek's experience is almost a textbook case of what some call the Ferrari syndrome. It's the realization that these external markers of success often fail to deliver lasting happiness. They might provide a temporary high, but true fulfillment comes from something deeper. What's important, and what we can all learn from Eek, is that he was willing to acknowledge that his pursuit of happiness was misaligned. He didn't just keep chasing empty pleasures. He stopped, he reflected, and he decided to course correct.
And that's a key part of his story, isn't it? He could have easily just kept going down that path, living a life of luxury but quiet desperation. But he had this self-awareness, this willingness to examine his own life and say, this isn't working. I need to figure out what truly matters.
It's almost as if his depression forced him to confront his own values, to really dig deep and ask himself, what am I doing with my life? What do I actually care about? And it's in that process of self-discovery that he starts to embrace his introverted nature. He even says he thrives on loneliness, which might sound strange to some people.
Right, like who actually enjoys being alone? But it's clear that for Eek, solitude wasn't about isolation. It was about creating space for deep thinking, for pursuing ideas without distraction. There's this great anecdote about him leaving dinner parties to work on projects. He wasn't trying to be rude, he just knew that's how he operated best. It really speaks to the importance of understanding our individual needs, don't you think?
Absolutely. We all have different ways of recharging, of processing information, of finding inspiration. And sometimes that means going against social norms, being willing to say, hey, I need some time to myself. It can be a challenge, though, especially in a world that often prizes extroversion and constant social interaction. Have you ever felt that pull, that need to step away from the crowd and just be alone with your thoughts? How do you navigate that balance between your personal needs and the expectations of others?
That's a great question, and it's something Eek had to figure out as he started to build Spotify, because believe it or not, he initially thought the music industry was a lost cause.
It's funny, isn't it? The guy who revolutionized how we listen to music almost dismissed the entire industry. But it speaks to his willingness to challenge assumptions, to look beyond conventional wisdom, and see opportunities where others see only problems.
He had this why not attitude that thankfully he paired with a co-founder, Martin Lorentzen, who was equally as bold and visionary. Imagine pitching the idea of Spotify. Back in the early 2000s, people were downloading music illegally, record labels were freaking out, and here come these two guys saying, we're going to create a platform that gives you access to millions of songs for a monthly fee. It's almost audacious, right?
It definitely took a certain kind of chutzpah to go up against the established
Right.
music industry. But what's fascinating about Ick is that he wasn't just a dreamer. He was also incredibly strategic. He focused on what he called ubiquity, making Spotify available across as many devices and platforms as possible. He knew that companies like Apple would eventually try to create their own walled gardens, so he had to be everywhere else. It was a brilliant move that would later prove crucial in Spotify's battle with the tech giant.
I love that story about him relentlessly pursuing meetings with record executives, even resorting to waiting outside their offices. It shows his tenacity, but also his understanding that relationships are key. In his own words, the world is more about relationships than logic, which is a powerful insight, especially in an industry as complex as music.
And it wasn't just about securing deals with record labels. He had to build a team, raise capital, navigate legal hurdles, and constantly adapt to the rapidly evolving world of technology. The early days of Spotify were incredibly intense, and Eek talks openly about the toll it took on him. The stress, the weight gain, the hair loss. It's a reminder that resilience, while essential for any entrepreneur, often comes at a personal cost.
Which makes his evolution as a leader all the more impressive. He went from being a hands-on product-focused CEO to someone who recognized the importance of empowering his team, of fostering a culture that could thrive even as the company scaled.
He realized that he couldn't do it all himself. He specifically mentions Gustav Soderstrom, who leads product, and Alex Nordstrom, who heads the business side, as taking on more responsibility as Spotify grew. Delegating like that, trusting others with your vision, can be incredibly difficult for founders, but it's essential for long-term success.
And he understood that culture wasn't just about perks or ping pong tables. It was about creating an environment where people felt valued, supported, and empowered to do their best work. He even said, culture is the most scalable thing done right, which is a pretty profound statement coming from a tech CEO.
It's fascinating how his own introverted nature seems to have shaped that belief. He understood the importance of psychological safety, of creating a space where people could take risks without fear of judgment, where they could be themselves and contribute their unique talents. He even compares Spotify's culture to that of a high-performing sports team, where everyone is aligned, motivated, and working towards a common goal.
It makes you wonder if his ability to create that kind of culture was almost a superpower, something that stemmed from his deep understanding of individual needs and the power of quiet, focused work.
And that's a really important point, isn't it? Because we often think of successful leaders as being these charismatic, extroverted figures. But each story shows that there's more than one way to lead. Sometimes the quietest voices can have the biggest impact.
It's a good reminder that leadership isn't about fitting a certain mold. It's about understanding your strengths, your team's strengths, and creating an environment where everyone can thrive. And that's exactly what Eek did with Spotify. They went from this tiny startup to a global phenomenon, facing countless challenges along the way. Remember when Apple launched its own music streaming service? Everyone thought Spotify was doomed.
It was a classic David versus Goliath situation. Apple had the resources, the brand recognition, the built-in advantage with iPhone users. But Spotify had something else, a deep understanding of their users, and a commitment to creating a superior experience. They focused on personalization, on making their platform available across all devices, on constantly innovating and improving their product.
It's like they were playing chess while Apple was playing checkers. They anticipated Apple's moves, focused on their own strengths, and ultimately won over users by offering a better product and more freedom of choice. They weren't going to be locked into a walled garden no matter how shiny it was.
And that resilience, that ability to adapt and overcome, is a testament to Eek's leadership and the culture he built. They didn't just survive Apple's entry, they thrived. They continued to grow, expand into new markets, and even became a major player in the podcasting world.
It's an incredible story of innovation and perseverance, and it all comes back to Eek's vision, his willingness to challenge assumptions, his focus on building something truly special. But what really struck me about his journey is the emphasis he places on mentorship and support. He talks about how his co-founder, Martin Lorentzen, was instrumental in those early days, providing encouragement and guidance when things were tough.
It highlights the power of having someone in your corner, someone who believes in you, who challenges you, who helps you see the potential even when you're doubting yourself. It's like having a coach, a cheerleader, and a confidant all rolled into one.
And it's not just about having one mentor. Eek talks about the importance of building a network of supportive relationships, people who can offer different perspectives, different skills, different types of guidance. It's about being open to learning from anyone, regardless of their title or position.
It reminds us that we don't have to go it alone. There are people out there who want to see us succeed, who are willing to share their knowledge and experience. It's about being willing to ask for help, to be vulnerable, to admit that we don't have all the answers.
And it's about giving back, too. Mentoring others, sharing our own experiences, and creating that same kind of supportive environment for those who are coming up behind us. Eek's story also really underscores the importance of embracing failure as part of the process. He's incredibly open about the fact that Spotify almost went bankrupt multiple times, that they faced numerous setbacks and made plenty of mistakes along the way.
But instead of seeing those failures as defeats, he viewed them as learning opportunities. He's a big believer in the idea of failing fast, failing often, because the more you experiment, the more you risk, the faster you learn and iterate.
It's about having the courage to try things, to push the boundaries, even if it means falling flat on your face sometimes, because that's how you innovate, that's how you grow.
And that's something we can all apply in our own lives, whether we're entrepreneurs, artists, or just trying to navigate the complexities of daily life. It's about adopting a growth mindset, the belief that we can always learn and improve, that challenges are opportunities for growth, and that setbacks are not the end of the story, but rather a chance to pivot and try again.
It's about having the resilience to keep going, to keep learning, to keep growing even when things get tough. And that brings us to one of the most powerful pieces of advice Eek offers. Bet on yourself. Don't try to emulate other successful people. Focus on developing your own unique strengths, your own superpowers.
He emphasizes the importance of looking inward, of identifying what you're truly passionate about, what makes you unique, what you can bring to the world that no one else can. It's about embracing your individuality, your quirks, your unconventional perspectives.
It's about having the courage to pursue your passions, even if they seem risky or unconventional, because that's where true innovation comes from those who dare to be different, who challenge the norms, who see the world through a different lens.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Daniel Ek, and I think it's worth asking ourselves, what seemingly impossible challenge might you be uniquely equipped to tackle? What dream are you holding back on because it feels too big, too risky, too unconventional?
Because as Eek's journey shows us, the most incredible things happen when we dare to bet on ourselves, to embrace our uniqueness and to pursue our passions with relentless determination. So go out there, explore those impossible challenges, and remember, the world needs your unique talents and your bold vision. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.